So our conversation is a really interesting one because these are two people who have a lot of internet followers and power, and we wield it really differently. And we were talking about that before we came here. You told me that was the passage that you remembered because
I also had a experience where, kind of, you guys have like a blog that kind of catches off, and at some point there's this kind of realization of, oh wow, I can really reach a lot of people and direct a lot of energy, and yes, that's like a power, whether it's, hey, come to the book signing, or, hey, do this. And as happened in Amanda's case, there are times when you feel you've witnessed an injustice, or you've been wronged, where you're like, ooh, I can use it for justice, justice. And that's a bad feeling to have. It always backfires. And Amanda, that story is kind of the lesson she learned. When I learned that lesson, my Facebook page had just gotten to, tens of thousands of people, and it was kind of snowballing. And I'm not sure if all of you know what I do, but what I do is I kind of stop people on the street and I ask for their photographs, and then I find out little bits about them, and I post these little stories on my blog. And one of my biggest pet peeves, I have a few, is when I ask a woman for her photograph and her boyfriend or husband answers for her. And so I asked, one day I was walking just outside, the guy might even be in the audience, I'm sorry. It was just right outside this store, and I asked a woman for her photograph, and she said yes, and then her boyfriend goes, no. And I go, excuse me, she goes, no, I want to. She says to him, she goes, no. And he goes, no, absolutely not. And she goes, yes, I'm doing it, okay? And so she stood, and then I kind of got ready to take the picture, and then the guy came and stood in the picture just with his arm around her with this real goofy face on, okay? And so I'm just like, I'm so mad about this. And I'm thinking, justice. Right? Oh, this is awful. This poor guy. So I wrote on my blog and I told the story just like, and I put the picture of him with that girl, just like that. And I put the picture of the story and I go at the bottom, share this post if you don't like men speaking for women. And so, yeah, it first, it was very similar. It felt good for such a small amount of time. And then it's just the comments started going, and it's just like, this guy is Satan to everybody. And seriously, that's the most evil guy. He's probably got dead bodies in his basement. He's got, look, and then people start look at his eye. I can tell he's a psychopath. It's like, oh yeah, I knew a guy that had hair like that. He killed somebody. And it's just it takes, and it's I wish I could say that was the only time that happened to me, and I made probably the biggest mistake I ever made with Humans of New York was, I don't even like to talk about it, I don't even want to go into detail, it was awful. There was a guy, I photographed a guy and a girl talking, and then afterwards she started crying and told me that he had tried to offer her money for sex. And then I had that justice feeling. You can never, no matter how strongly you feel about something, there's a reason that we have court systems. It's you can never, you can never just throw something like that to a large group of people because it just gets out of you. And luckily I learned that lesson earlier than later.
Well, this is so on topic for everything I see happening on the internet lately. Because it's there's no subtlety. And everybody just wants things to be absolutely black and white. And there's a lot of hunger for justice, but a lot of that hunger and passion seems to be really mislaid. And I've even in the last couple of weeks, it can be really disheartening especially everything, like after everything I've been through, and you feel like you get to this spot where you realize what works and what doesn't work, which is like, oh, if you put out a bunch of negative shit on your blog and you're going to like go after people and serve justice, there's all this fiery blowback and you never get what you wanted. You actually wind up hurting people, and and you've learned that lesson, and you kind of want to say to everybody who's sort of out there with their pitchforks, like trying to stab other people and do good, you're like, oh, it doesn't work, actually. You're hurting everybody. But it is really interesting, because now with social media, everybody has access to everybody, and it's freaking everybody out. And also like the anger and the justice seekers and the violent voices are so loud that they tend to drown out the sort of reasonable people in the background going like, well,
yeah. I mean, it's unbelievable. It's just like, seriously, if you think about what a PR crisis was 10 years ago, letters coming in, 10, 15, 20, 100 a day. Now it's just like thousands of people bombing your Facebook page every minute. You're saying, and I just like, you see seasoned PR, people just have Twitter meltdowns. They just have Twitter meltdowns. Like, they're taught to how to handle a situation, but they get so defensive because it's all coming so fast and so fast. It's just I have to be really careful about that on Humans of New York, because I was another thing that I was saying through learning that kind of experience is I have to make judgment calls, like when people are talking to me, that they'll say something where I think it would be like a truthful representation of them. But I know it would ruin their lives.
like somebody says something really sexist or really racist. Or whatever.
Yeah, and it's just like, okay, this is an accurate representation. Remember, like Brandon, in the first few months would be like, okay, well, we'll see what people think about that, and it's just like, I'm an artist, but I'm also an artist that, millions of people look at the work immediately. And it's so I have to, make these judgments of, truth versus really hurting this person. Even kind of, small things. Maybe it's not always something they did wrong. Maybe they're talking about their sister, and their relationship with their sister. And it's truth or destroying this person's relationship with their sister. It's kind of a new dynamic just because of how it's like the commenting, the sharing. I always say that being on Humans of New York now is like an act of bravery. It's just like, if you're saying something about yourself, and you do it every single day on Twitter, you open yourself up, but it's like these are people that didn't sign up to be online, celebrities. And, they just some guy walked up to them on the street with a camera. And, they're putting their secrets out there, they're putting their weaknesses out there. They're just now, millions of people, thousands of people who want to comment, who, want to rush to judgment and don't have all the facts.
But it's so similar to the things that I go through, because it's basically, it's the price you pay for the flip side, which is everybody actually sees themselves in the humanity of these people, and the fact that these people are so willing to be honest about their lives. And it's like, when you're talking about art, and I've seen this, just to bring up the obvious one right now, Lena Dunham's new book, it's like, here she is just sharing an intimate, kind of freaky, personal story, but the rush to judgment doesn't worry me so much for Lena Dunham. I think she'll get over it. What worries me is people looking at that state of the world and going, well, like, I'll be fucked if I'm going to share my story. If those are the consequences for saying something potentially misinterpretable or misunderstandable or slightly off color. And the real worry is that, things get so frightening, and there's so many people who might react to what your story might be, your true story might be, that you just wind up with a really whitewashed world where the only things people are saying on the internet are the safe things. And that's terrifying, given what we could do. And it's freaky.
Yeah, and I will say, and Amanda, said this, I was kind of talking about, Amanda and I have completely different green room styles. Like, I'm back there, whenever I'm about to go in front of a bunch of people, I'm just kind of sitting there and thinking about what I'm going to say, and, Amanda's changing in front of everybody. She goes, I'm sorry, I forgot to put my dress on, and you guys are going to have to deal with it. She's just like, completely laid back. But I was, talking to her, and sometimes I get nervous before I go on stage, and she says, well, you don't have to worry about my audience, because they are just people who want to appreciate it. And, I was kind of looking at everybody's faces, too, and it's interesting how you can see, like, a single soul in a group of people. Like when Amanda was singing a song which is about insecurity and who you want to be, and I just kind of love looking at people's faces, and I could see, and I was a little jealous, too, because it's something I don't have, like, music touches people in a way that is, and I could see different people kind of singing along with it, and I can, imagine them singing along with it in their bedrooms, and like you have the kind of music touch everybody, and you're a group of people who want to appreciate it, want to accept, and the HoNY audience is a lot like that. And it's just like, one thing that if there's a criticism for the HoNY audience, it's too sentimental, too positive, too supportive, but it's the only way you can be on the internet to sustain something like this. If you're going to have somebody standing up on a pedestal, just bearing their soul, and, just telling about their weaknesses, what they feel guilty about, and their mistakes, it's like this is the only type of community or audience that would be a sustainable model. Or else it's going to just become such an uncomfortable, sad place to be that nobody's going to want to be on the block. And so, it's Amanda's ability and hopefully HoNY's ability to bring people like this together, which self-regulate too. If we were all a comment section and one guy stood up and, started making fun of people, if this was a different crowd, there'd be laughter, But in this crowd, there'd just be shock and revulsion and get out of here. And so that's kind of how communities can kind of, even on the internet, which is kind of this porous and open place, create these safe spaces for art like this to exist, for vulnerability, for Nina Dunham to talk about her curiosities when she was 7 years old, God forbid, And so, you kind of battle that with getting together a group of like-minded people who self-regulate and self-monitor.
You guys are awesome. It's like an audience appreciation moment. So I wanted to ask you, this is my own burning curiosity now. We were talking about how we use the internet, and Brandon was like, you're so constantly engaged, and on Twitter you're like back and forth, and responding to everybody's comments and sort of in a non-stop dialogue, which is true. And you were saying you really like putting out the work, letting the work speak for itself, and a whole conversation sort of erupts around it, but you keep yourself separate. And you were also saying that you have no problem, like in person, thanking people, listening to their stories, expressing gratitude and stuff. What do you think is the difference between because not everybody would want to take a camera and go up to strangers in the street and engage them. That actually sounds terrifying to me. That's like another level of bravery. And where do you think the difference is between your ability to be so brave out in the field of the street approaching these various strangers, some of whom are going to really reject you or get angry at you or maybe be violent at you in a physical way, something that I don't, things can get really, really bad on the internet, but generally I feel safe, and I always feel like I can kind of subvert and figure out my way. But you're making yourself really vulnerable when you go out and do that. What do you think the difference is between doing it in the street and doing it on Facebook or replying to someone's comment on your blog?
I was telling Amanda that it's funny that both of you are asking where I try to not really ask for anything. Normally, if I advertise my book or anything, it's after a few emails from a publisher, like, hey, you said you were going to do it, what's going on, what's going on? You know, there was just, I think, kind of this moment when I moved to New York and nobody was following me, and I started kind of getting my first few followers, and, you know, the kind of ethos that I developed was that I just want to give my audience everything of what they want, nothing of what they don't want, you know? And so it's just kind of this, like, you know, I almost view like kind of the news feed as kind of like a sacred space, you know, like somebody has invited you kind of into their home, and it's the, you know, I want to be kind of the guest that gives, and then they're telling people about this awesome guest in their home, and then they're, you know, inviting you in, they're inviting you in, they're inviting you in. And, you know, I just kind of maybe overcompensated that I'm like addicted to it, or that it's just like it works, you know, and kind of giving and giving and giving. But yeah, you know, I'm afraid I don't like to put kind of anything on the blog that is not just a picture and a conversation with somebody on the street that...
Which is the art itself. But we were talking about this earlier, and I was like, well, there's also this, you know, there is this, I want to say flip siding of it. It's like there's also this aspect that offering, so if these are your readers and your fan base, and you've been giving them just the pure art and the content, and it's free, and then you turn around and you offer them a book for sale, a lot of them might really want to buy the book.
Right.
And so, you know, it isn't even just like, and now is, you know, like public radio, and now is the time when I ask you to support me so I can actually pay my rent and go out and take these photos. You're even offering them something that they may even want, but even can be uncomfortable because you feel like you're going out and you're sort of like polluting the pureness of it by asking something commercial.
Yeah, and you know, maybe it's the difference between offering and selling. You know, offer, you kind of present it a few times, take it or leave it, and then just kind of go back, you know, just to doing, you know, the pure content. But yeah, you know, it's just, it's kind of, I don't know, it's just how I do it, yeah.
So, the TED Talk that the book is based on, it actually was inspired by, like, exactly that. Because I've had this conversation with so many musicians, especially my friends who felt like they could talk to me in confidence. And they were like, well, you know, Amanda, like, you have no problem being shameless and asking people to buy your records or getting on stage and asking people to buy your merch or whatever, but, like, I just can't, and I can't explain why, but I don't, you know, I just want to make music, or I just want to do my photos, or I just want to make my art. I don't want to have to, like, go out with my hand out to my audience saying, please help me, because I also need money. And it really was like, that was the genesis of the TED Talk, especially when crowdfunding got big, and a lot of artists were having to do it, but they were really bad at it. Because they would, you know, I was watching like video after video on Kickstarter of artists being like, this is really embarrassing, sorry. And I was just like, oh, this is embarrassing. Like, just ask, it's fine. You're actually making everyone feel more awkward.
So here's a tough question. When I looked at your Kickstarter, you weren't just asking, because you were offering a lot of awesome stuff on there.
Yeah.
A lot, I was looking at this, it's like, yeah, you raised $1.2 million, but you also committed yourself to so much, and you've already been offering and giving and working for so long, and it had given so much to that audience. Now, one thing that, you know, I'm really big on is, you know, ideas are cheap, and work is what's really rare. Do you think that Kickstarter culture has gone too far, and people want to be rewarded and compensated just for having ideas before they put any work beyond it?
I mean, I think Kickstarter culture is strange and is in the midst of self-regulating in a couple of ways. I mean, first of all, because now that everybody and anybody can crowdfund, you're all of a sudden seeing this, like, and like Haley is sitting right in front of me. She works at Kickstarter, and she will know, like, of which I speak. She also works for me and has worked for the Dresden Dolls. You know, once everybody has a tool, there is this, you know, there is this sort of regulating ecosystem of everyone going like, well, if I try it, will it work? If I try it, will it work? Like, if I just want to like crowdfund my Bermuda vacation, is there like a magical money tree out there that will just fall on my house? And the answer is like, no. You know, but and I write about this in the book too, for the people who actually know who their audience is. You know, you might find someone out there trying to crowdfund their dream vacation, and they're just on crack because they're just asking the universe